So tonight we're going to be discussing when a function is increasing and decreasing. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to sketch the graph. So you're going to plug this function into the calculator and you're going to sketch it after you see what it looks like. Okay, so when you sketch it, it should look something like this. Arrows at the end because it keeps going forever. And we're going to label our minimums or maximum. That's our next step on this graph. So obviously this one has a minimum at this point down here. So go in your calculator and find out what that point is. Okay, so you should get that point to be 2, -4. That's our minimum. So our next step is to draw a number line underneath the graph with our minimum x value on the number line. Okay, so when we draw our number line, something like that, you know, this is -infinity because of arrows, this is +infinity, and we'll put 2 right here. Remember, we're taking our x value and putting it on the number line. So I skipped ahead, and our fourth step is to put our x values on the number line. So that's our next step. Plot the x values of the minimum or maximum on the number line. So plot x values of min or max. Okay, so now go back to your graph and we're going to learn how to read the graph and how to determine whether it's increasing or decreasing. So when we look at the graph, we're looking from left to right. So if we look here, this is going off towards -infinity on the x values. So would you say coming down here, it's going down, so it's decreasing until it gets to our minimum point, and then it starts going up and makes it increasing. So remember, left to right is how we read a graph. So now what I want you to do is look at our number line and put pluses or minuses where the graph is increasing or decreasing. So we saw from -infinity to our minimum, it was going down, right? So we're going to draw some minuses. And from 2 to infinity, it started to go up. So we'll draw pluses. So that's our next step. Draw these minuses or pluses where the graph is increasing or decreasing. So draw plus or minus. So our last step is to write it in interval notation. So interval notation. So we said it was decreasing from -infinity. So you write decreasing. From -infinity to 2. And it was increasing from 2 to infinity. Alright, now look at number 2. This one's a doozy. So our first step was to sketch the graph, right? And it should look, actually, let me erase this x-axis here. Because it should look something along the lines of this. So our step 1 was complete. Number 2 was to find the minimums or maximums of the graph. So we notice you have a maximum point here and a minimum point here. So let's look at the calculator and figure out where they are. So I said this was a maximum because if you look at the graph, it starts going up and then it gets to this point and then starts going down. So that's why we call this a maximum. And then it goes down and then it's here and starts going back up. That's why this one's a minimum. Okay, so let's start at the maximum point. That should be at 0, -2. And our minimum should be at 2, -10. Okay, so our third step was to draw a number line. So I'll draw that over here. Okay, and remember, we're taking our x values of our minimums and maximums and putting them on the number line. So we have 0 and we have 2. Let's make this line a little longer. Okay, so we have 0 and 2 on the number line. Our next step was to place a plus or a minus where the graph is increasing. So from -infinity, I'll label this infinity, from -infinity to our first maximum point at 0, remember we read left to right, just like we read a book, and it's going up right here. So we put pluses here. When it gets to 0, it begins to go down, right, until it hits the x value of 2. So that's our minuses. Then from 2 all the way up to infinity, it's increasing again. So that's our plus. And our final step is to write it in interval notation. So increasing from -infinity to 0 and to infinity. We said it's decreasing from 0 to 2. Okay, so flip it over and look at number 3. We know our first step is to graph the sketch. So it should look something along the lines of that, kind of, something like that. So again, our second step is to find the minimum and maximum. So we have them here. In this case, the minimum should be at like -0.9 to -1. Just round to the nearest tenth. If it says -1 in your calculator, that's fine. And our maximum here is 0.91. Third step, draw the number line, label it so you know where you're going from, and our fourth step is to plot the x values of the mins and maxes. So we have negative 0.9 and 0.9. Okay, fifth step, read the graph. We go left to right, so here we're going down, right? So that's decreasing from negative 0.9 to 0.9. We're going up. So when you go up, you increase. And then from 0.9 down to infinity, well, over to infinity, we are decreasing again. So our interval notation would be decreasing. It doesn't matter if you write decreasing or increasing first, as long as you get it right. We're decreasing from negative infinity to negative 0.9, and so you put a comma there, 0.9 to infinity. And it's increasing from negative 0.9 to 0.9. Alright, we'll practice a little bit more in class. Have a good night.